Welcome to Module 3 of Level Up Your Instagram. This module is called On Brand, so we will be talking about your brand on Instagram. So now that you have your profile set up and ready to go and you know who you're targeting, the next important key to putting together your strategy is knowing your brand. This will be what keeps your content consistent, ties your messaging together, and connects your audience and customers to you. So we're gonna go over understanding your visual brand, how to tell your story, develop your brand's voice, and how to tie together all of your content. So posts, stories, IGTV, all of Instagram coming together with your consistent branding. This not a branding course, and for all the graphic designers, if you were watching this, I will not take over your job. I am not helping you create a logo. I am not even diving deep into branding or say a branding document. That's not what we're doing here. However, we'll go over branding in general and tie it back to Instagram for all of that content, because it's still important whether or not you have a whole branding document or just doing Instagram. It's still important to have a consistent branding overall, especially if you are a business. So that includes, like I said, your feed posts, your stories, your highlights, and your IGTV. And what we'll talk about mostly includes your visual brand, but also we'll touch upon the voice of your brand as well. So let us get into it, and we'll first talk about your visual brand, since Instagram is a visual platform. While we're going over this section of the module, if you want to do your homework right now instead of waiting till afterwards, use the Building Your Brand worksheet as we go through this section. It'll just make it all easier so that you can do it while we're talking, and at the end you'll have it done. So like I said, this course is not about developing your brand, but I'll go over what to keep in mind when putting together your visual brand. I can help you put together a logo, but more just the overall look and feel that you're going for. The key is consistency, just like with anything. So it's important to think about your brand before you start. I know it can seem silly, you're like, I'll just post, or it'll just come together as I post, but just to make the whole process easier, just think about your brand before you start. If you've already started and you're kind of just going through this because you want to level up your Instagram, the name, still think about it. Think about what you've done and kind of where you want it to go. Yes, you'll be able to tell the evolution of the brand, but in the end, it's better to have a consistent brand moving forward than just doing whatever and hoping that it comes together on its own, because it probably won't. So you just have to think about it. That's what this section is, and that's what the worksheet is. So what you really want to think about is your overall vibe, not only for the visual part of your brand, but also for your voice as well. So how do you want to feel? How do you want people to feel when they are interacting with your brand? What do you want them to think about when they see your brand? And what look are you going for in general? So to get started answering those questions, they're very basic questions. And if anything came to your mind, just write it down. Just write all your notes down for kind of the look and feel that you're going for. So to start, if you have the worksheet in front of you, think about 3 words that describe your brand or what you want your brand to feel like. 3 separate words. They can be random, related, doesn't matter. Even a little sentence if you really want, but 3 words to describe them. And then next, pick 3 words that you want people to feel when they see and interact with your brand, which I understand that they could overlap in those 2 sections, but just to get your brain juices flowing. Next, pick 3 words that would describe your brand's aesthetic. So for example, clean, bright, minimal, bold, in your face, funny, whatever those words are, whatever you want it to feel like. And don't limit yourself based on what you think you should be doing or what you think Instagram will like. Do it based on who you are, who your brand is, and then it'll become off as just more authentic if you're really picking words that you want your brand to feel rather than the expectations of the internet. That will help nobody of any part of your life. So these words, the 9 words that you have written down, will help you get an understanding of the overall vibe that you're going for. For now, we're going to focus on what you want the audience to feel when they see your brand and what kind of aesthetic you're going for. So when deciding your color palette, which is probably one of the easiest things to start with, just because you have the words and like what you want it to feel like, but usually colors is what really like brings it all together and it's easy to keep consistent. So this is completely up to you. Obviously, it's your brand. If you already have a logo or colors, like if you already have a branding document, you're already far into this journey of your business, then great, you're already ready to go. But if not, pick colors that represent your brand. This is especially important. This course is designed for small businesses, but if you're putting together a personal brand or like your side hustle or something that's completely yours and there's really no purpose behind your colors, like for example, my business, I just picked the colors that I liked, then this is kind of like where, whatever, it's so totally subjective, whatever you feel like. So pick colors that you like, obviously, and pick colors that go well together. So if you're going for a clean and bright and minimal feel, pick colors that are clean and bright and minimal feeling. So pastels with like a gray or beige, or just keeping everything like fairly neutral, as opposed to like if you're going for bold, then pick bright colors, like maybe a bright yellow or a bright red or something like that. This color palette will be used when creating your content for your grid, but also for your graphics and fonts for your stories and your story highlights. So like I said, that's what ties it all together. We'll talk about how presets for your photos and videos play a part in bringing that together as well, but that will be in the next module. So don't worry about that for now. So if you have your colors or like just your ideas of the colors that you want, you can kind of play with them. Like for example, when I put together the colors for poolside, there's about 5 colors, but if you looked at the Instagram feed, you only can really see the yellow and the turquoise because those are the ones I just like feel the most. So you can have like a primary color if you want, and then some just like accent colors or whatever you're feeling. I have like 5 just main colors, except for that my logo is mostly the turquoise, but I've kind of just brought in the yellow because I'm just feeling the yellow right now. And so maybe that's just because it's summertime. I don't know, but that's why this whole course is branded in yellow as opposed to turquoise, just because I felt like I liked it. I just like it. It's my business, picking the yellow. Sorry if it hurt your eyes looking at the PowerPoint that's all yellow, but I have consistent coloring throughout and on my website, which obviously we're not talking about website or anything else, but all the colors flow together across all my platforms so that it's noticeable and people can recognize your brand. That's as deep as we'll go for overall branding, but once you have your colors, pick your fonts, which again, all graphic designers will hate me, but a font is a font. Like you don't want an ugly font, but just pick one you like. Pick a couple that you like just to make it, you can switch things up a little bit, but you want to like, you should pick ones that you're going to use consistently, again, because this goes past Instagram most of the time into other parts of your branding. But pick a couple fonts that you like. Either you can pick ones that are already like on your computer and you have been using. Canva has a lot of different ones to pick from, or if you just Google free fonts, there's pages and pages and pages of fonts. That only works if you are creating graphics and you can make them on your computer and save them, because if you send a document to someone who doesn't have the fonts, then it does not work. However, Instagram, making graphics using Adobe, you can download your own fonts and put them on. So I have a couple that are just off the internet that I found that I really liked, but pick a couple is all I'm trying to say. Keep it consistent, keep it simple. Don't pick Times New Roman. That's all the advice I have to give you. Pick ones, again, that reflect your brand. So fun and playful or straight and modern, the feel that you're going for. This could already be done if you already have a branding document, then your fonts are already picked with your logo, your golden. If you want to keep it consistent, like I said, pick a font that you will have access to across all boards. So if you're going to pick a font and only use Canva, well then that's cool. But if you're going to, like I sometimes do, I use Canva, I use Adobe, you want to make sure that you can use the font across your whole computer as opposed to just one website. The tricky part about that is if you're using apps. So if you're using like Unfold or some of the other like graphic-y making ones, they usually have just random fonts. So pick ones that are similar in those apps and then pick the consistent ones for your computer work. When you're creating your stories, you also want those to be consistent with your brand in terms of look and feel. But like I said, if you have an app that doesn't exactly match, then it's fine as long as your colors are the same and obviously your voice will tie that all together. Some of the apps that I use for templates, if you're interested, makes it really easy if it's already on your phone. Unfold, and once you open Unfold, you will notice that literally everybody uses Unfold for their stories because they're just very consistently minimalistic. I really like that one's really easy to use. Also, a design kit has super cool ones with like cute stickers. Color Story over Afterlight is good. Afterlight is what people use, you know, the photos that like look old school. They have like kind of like if it was like a photograph and it has like a crack and kind of like speckly. That's Afterlight. And I also like WordSwag for like quote posts. If you're gonna do those ones are really easy and they like switch around the fonts for you. Those are, it might seem like a lot. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 apps might seem like a lot, but it's not really. Like you can stick to one, but sometimes it's just good to have options. So those are the ones that I use and I actually use them. I'm not just saying it. I actually have downloaded all of these and I use them probably almost every day. The next part of this section is telling your story. So this is more about finding your voice as opposed to the visual brand, but consistency across the whole board ties together your whole brand. If you have not, I have not said that enough. Apologize, I'm gonna keep repeating myself because it's important. Consistency is important. So finding your voice and being consistent is key to overall brand. People like brands that they can get to know, can relate to, and know what to expect. So this kind of reminds me, I'm gonna kind of go off on a tangent, but just like put it in perspective. So I love reality TV, but really any TV show, even if like you know the TV show's bad, but you still watch it, is because you know the characters and you've gotten to know them and you want to see what they do next and you can kind of just relate to them. That's kind of how it feels with a brand. Like you're a personality, like you as a person are a personality, but your brand also is a personality and people like when they can relate to you and when they just get to know you. So that's why consistency is key. Like, you know, if you have a friend that just does like random shit all the time and is like, has off days and on days and you just kind of get confused and you're just like not really into that. It's just a human nature. I don't know, I was gonna say flaw, but it's not really a flaw. Just human nature to want things to be consistent and recognizable and comfortable. That's just how we operate. So you kind of want your brand to be like that because then people feel like a personal connection. Just like if you use Apple products, you have a connection to that because it's relatable and you know what to expect. Same with any other brand, basically, that you probably use. I'm sure a ton come to mind. That's why people can charge extra for brands because they put in that work. So finding a personal voice can be more difficult for a business than a personal brand, obviously, because if I'm me, then I can be very aware of the kind of brand that I'm putting off. But for a business, you kind of have to put a little bit more effort into it, especially if you have a team. So if one person is running the social media, like if I'm running my business social media, it's fine because I can be the voice of my business and my social media. However, if I have a team or if I want my social media to be different than the person who's running it, then you have to develop a voice for your brand that everybody can use. So you can kind of tell sometimes, I can tell because like I work with it all the time, but I've had clients where they found someone else to run it or they've had their intern run it or someone else is running it. And I can tell when it's switched to somebody else because they're now talking as if they were talking and it's their sense of humor and it's their personality coming out in the brand, which is fine, but it is better to be consistent, especially if you have such different personalities running your social media. So you just want to keep that in mind that people will obviously just talk in their own voice. So if you have a brand that's already laid out, it's important to educate whoever's running it to really get to know how to use that voice, which might take a little bit, especially if you're handing over your social media that you've done for a while. But just being aware and having someone learn how to use that voice is key. And it's important to think about what you want that voice to be. So do you want to be witty? Do you want to be funny? Do you want to be just educational? Do you want to be motivational? Like you can kind of take like a more like friends next door or more of like a mentor, or like you can pick a different type of personality that you want your brand to be, obviously depending on what you're going for and like how serious you are and how funny, non-serious you want to be. You can kind of switch between a few of them, but like for the most part, like if you pictured a person's personality, you kind of stay within the same like realm of that personality. So like I said, people are looking for brands that are relatable and sound like they could be friends. No one wants to interact with a brand that's just selling them stuff or comes off just like as a business. Nobody wants to interact with a business. We all know that. And social media is a social platform first and foremost. And I think we forget that sometimes, that social media is really to be interacting with people and to connecting with people. And that also applies to businesses. So like you're interacting with people and your customers, and there are people behind your business. So it's just a social platform for everybody. So you want to be able to connect with your audience on a more intimate level. And to do that, your brand has to have a real and authentic voice that stays consistent, which is basically sums up what I just like ranted about for the last few minutes. You have to keep in mind your target audience as well when you're creating this voice. So if you're always using the latest slang words or like viral quotes or jokes or whatever off of Twitter or something, that might be great and hilarious if your audience is aged between like 16 and 25 who understand those cultural references. But picture like my parents won't understand what I'm saying if I'm using those same slang words, and then they'll lose that connection with the content. So if your audience is between the ages of like 45 and 55, you might want to just change the voice a little bit and use different words and different vocabulary and different song lyrics. You don't want to use Drake. You got to use like Bruce Springsteen kind of thing, you know? Like you just have to keep in mind your target audience so that it does resonate with them, because if they don't have that connection, then you've lost them as a follower and probably as a customer, which sounds really extreme, but people are flaky these days. So you have to be on top of it. And then once you have that voice kind of nailed down and in your captions and in your stories, or if you're talking or whatever is happening with your voice, it should translate into your content. So that is how you tie together your voice and your visual brand, is through your photos and your videos and stories and everything like that. So we've talked about it a ton, this whole thing, but I just want to nail down the importance of consistent branding. So this is what ties together all of your content, is consistency. So your posts, your stories, your IGTV, your highlights, everything. So color palette, like I said, is important. Using the same colors in your feed and your stories and your highlights all bring that together. And it also ties together your feed and your highlights, because those are like right next to each other on your like homepage profile. Fonts and colors used in the stories will also be used for any graphics or fonts, which would be your cover for your IGTV video, or if you have like subtitles in your IGTV videos. And they will all translate back to your overall brand on Instagram. And again, just to like touch upon the rest of the overall marketing, all of these things will be used outside of Instagram as well. So on your website or your advertisements or your email newsletters and all of that, it's all the same colors, all the same fonts. You want your brand to be consistent. You also want to keep your voice consistent across your feed, your stories, and your IGTV as well. If your captions are funny and relatable, but your stories are only sale pitches, then people won't want to engage with your entire brand. And again, if you ask a lot of questions and polls and stuff on stories, but then don't seem open on your captions, then you'll lose that consistency and lose your audience's captivity with your brand. So stay consistent is basically the key to this entire module. But I just wanted to go over like how you should really put that together and creating your brand through those words that describe it, and think about how you want your audience to feel when they're interacting with your brand. So the homework, if you didn't already fill out the worksheet as I was talking, the homework for this module is building your brand, putting together all those words, coming up with your colors and your fonts, and just like what you want people to feel when they're with your brand. That is the end of module 3. Once you are done the worksheet and kind of have an idea of your brand, we're going to move into module 4, which is really the nitty gritty of this whole course, which is creating the content, which will be put onto Instagram. So let us do that.